The celestial quartz security scanner hummed with menace, its crystalline surface pulsing an ominous red. Daisy stood before it, hands loose at her sides, while the assembled aliens whispered in their clicking, hissing languages. The human girl, barely 20 standard years, had just done the impossible. She'd requested an audience with the Confluence Council without sponsorship, without credentials, without fear. Impossible, High Arbitrator Zathon had declared, his 6 eyes narrowing in his chitinous face. No species enters these halls without proper clearance. The security protocols will. The scanner launched a restraint beam. It was supposed to be inescapable. A concentrated field of quantum-locked particles that could freeze a charging Krellian warbeast mid-stride. Reduce a Vex battleship's shields to nothing. The beam shrieked through the air, reality itself bending around its trajectory. Daisy flicked her fingertip. The beam split into 2 paths, curving around her body like water around stone, dissipating harmlessly into the chamber's energy-absorbent walls. She didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stood there, a slight smile playing at the corner of her mouth. The whispers stopped. "That's not possible," Zathon said again, but his voice had lost its authority. "The restraint beam operates on fundamental physical principles. It cannot be." Redirected. "Your fundamental physical principles," Daisy corrected gently. William watched from the observation gallery above, his heart hammering. He'd tried to stop her, of course. When Daisy had announced her intention to march into the galaxy's supreme governmental body and demand they listen to humanity's case for sovereignty, he'd called her insane. "They'll arrest you," he'd said. "Or worse." "They'll try," she'd replied. Now, watching her stand calmly while the greatest minds in 500 species stared in shocked silence, William realized he'd underestimated his friend. Again. The Confluence had rejected humanity's application for membership 3 times. Too primitive, they'd said. Too violent. Too young. The fact that humans had developed faster than light travel in less than 2 centuries, something that took most species millennia, only made the aliens more nervous. Humanity was an anomaly. And anomalies were dangerous. But Daisy had discovered something during her unsanctioned research into the precursor ruins on Kepler 442b. Something the Confluence had kept hidden for 10,000 years. The precursors didn't disappear, Daisy announced to the assembled delegates. They evolved. And they weren't some ancient, unknowable species. They were humans. The chamber erupted. Delegates rose from their seats, voices overlapping in a cacophony of denial and outrage. Security drones descended from the ceiling, weapons charging. Cathon slammed his gavel equivalent, a crystalline rod that produced a piercing tone. Silence. This is heresy of the highest order. The precursors existed millions of years before your species crawled from its primordial seas. You will retract this claim. Or what? Daisy's voice cut through the noise like a blade. You'll deploy another scanner? Another restraint field? Maybe your void cannons? She gestured casually at the concealed weapons in the walls. I can see them. You know. The quantum signatures are quite distinct. Once you know what to look for. William felt a chill run down his spine. He'd known Daisy was brilliant. They'd met at the Lunar Technical Institute, where she'd solved problems in theoretical physics that had stumped professors for decades. But this was something else. This was someone who'd touched something fundamental about the universe and come back changed. The precursors left you gifts, Daisy continued, her voice calm but carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Their technology, their knowledge, their ruins scattered across 1,000 worlds. You built your entire civilization on their foundations. But you never asked the right question. Where did they go? She raised her hand, and her fingertips began to glow with a soft, golden light. Not technology. Something deeper. Something written into the fabric of reality itself. They didn't disappear. They transcended. Left this dimension for something higher. But before they did, they left a map. A genetic marker buried so deep in the human genome that it would only activate when we reached a certain level of evolutionary development. When we were ready. 10. Daisy clenched her fist, and the golden light intensified. Around her, mathematical formulas appeared in the air, rendered in pure energy. They were equations William recognized from the precursor sites, the same unsolved theorems that had driven xenoarchaeologists mad for millennia. Except Daisy was solving them. In real time, in her head. "You feared humanity's rapid advancement," she said. "You should have. But not because we're violent or primitive. You should have feared us because we're waking up. Every generation, we evolve faster. Think deeper. Reach further. And now, finally, we've reached the threshold." She opened her hand, and a holographic display materialized, showing the precursor genetic sequence alongside human DNA. The similarities were undeniable. Impossible to dismiss. A direct lineage spanning millions of years. "The precursors were our ancestors," Daisy said quietly. "And we are their inheritors." Quote, "And we are their inheritors." Zathon had gone very still. Around him, other delegates were accessing their personal databases, running the comparisons themselves. The evidence was overwhelming. "This changes nothing," the High Arbitrator said finally, though his voice lacked conviction. "Even if your claims are true, and I am not conceding that they are, humanity remains too unstable for Confluence membership. Your wars, your conflicts, are growing pains," Daisy interrupted. "Every species has them. But we're learning, evolving, and whether you grant us membership or not, we're not going away. The precursor gift is activating across our entire species. In another generation, maybe 2, every human will be able to do what I just did." She paused, letting that sink in. "The only question is whether you want us as allies or as something else." The silence that followed was profound. William realized he was holding his breath. Below, Daisy stood perfectly still, waiting. Around her, the most powerful beings in the galaxy were realizing that the balance of power had just fundamentally shifted. Finally, Zathon spoke. "The Confluence will reconsider humanity's application." Daisy smiled. "I thought you might." As she turned to leave, the security scanners remained dark. No restraint beams, no weapons. Just a young human woman walking calmly through doors that had never opened for her species before. In the observation gallery, William exhaled slowly. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy not as primitives begging for acceptance, but as the rightful heirs to the greatest civilization the universe had ever known. And Daisy had done it with nothing more than the truth and a flick of her fingertip. The future, William thought, was going to be very interesting indeed.